Here.
Yes.
All right, item 2 is approving the city manager to release mortgage and related security instruments pursuant to the 5H Affordable Home Ownership Program for the following. A is Camille T. Brown, 2637 Grandview Avenue, Board Communication number 14-027. And B is Douglas K. Melton of 3710 Garfield Avenue, Board Communication 14-26. Is there anybody here in the audience to speak to either one of these releases of mortgage? Seeing none.
I'll move.
Mr. Coleman moves 2A and B. It's been moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes. Item 3 is approving a significant amendment to the Des Moines Municipal Housing Agency's 2013 Section 8 Administrative Plan, Chapter 5, to change the subsidy standards in conjunction with the Section Housing Choice Voucher Program, Board Communication number 14-033. I think we may have one or two speakers, but I would ask Doug Romig to please highlight this issue for us. I personally have some questions and maybe would hope that maybe we could have further review of this issue. But at any rate, go ahead, Doug.
Can you do the screen for me, please? Mayor, County, members of the Municipal Housing Governing Board, Doug Romig, Housing Services Director. The subsidy standard is the determination of how much subsidy a household receives based on the composition of that household. Our current language, this is sort of abbreviated, but right now, 2 children of the same gender would be required to share a bedroom. Children of opposite genders shall be required to share a bedroom till the age of 6. Once they reach age 7, then they'd get their own bedroom. And then adults of the opposite gender, other than married couples, would not be required to share a bedroom. The proposed language is that the items 1 and 2 are statutory. These are regulatory requirements. So the payment standard, which is different than the subsidy standard, the payment standard is the amount of subsidy we provide based on the unit size. So the payment standards for the household is based on the unit size, and the payment standard for the unit size or the unit size rented by the household. So if a single individual received a 1-bedroom subsidy standard, but they rented an efficiency apartment, they would only get the efficiency subsidy standard because it's the lower of the 2 amounts. So they can't take a higher payment standard for a 1-bedroom and use that for an efficiency apartment. And then the recommended language change moving forward is that a 1-bedroom subsidy standards would be assigned for every 2 household members, regardless of age, gender, or familial status.
Okay, we need to go back to that one. Could you go to the first page, please? That adults of opposite gender, other than married couples, will not be required to share a bedroom. Now you go to the next one, and it says 1-bedroom subsidy standards will be assigned to every 2 household members, regardless of age, gender, or familial status. That seems to be in conflict with that first statement.
This is the change that's being recommended. The first slide is what our current language is. This is what we're recommending to change it to. So it's a change in service level.
Okay, and this is required by HUD?
No, this is at our discretion to set this up. The first 2 elements on here, the size of the unit a family rents, that's the size of subsidy we would provide. Okay. So if they qualify for a 1-bedroom subsidy but rent an efficiency, we can only provide the efficiency subsidy rate.
All right, but you don't think this is a problem?
Well, let me jump into the next slide.
Please.
The research that we did in looking at the other public housing authorities throughout Iowa and actually at the national conferences, almost all of the language that is being used is similar or stricter to what we are proposing. The language we submitted and that was reviewed and put out for public input is identical language that SERHA is using, Central Iowa Regional Housing Authority. Their administration is offices in Grimes, Iowa, and they serve the surrounding counties. Eastern Iowa Regional Housing Authority has the identical language that we're recommending, and the city of Sioux City has actually stricter language. They do 2 heartbeats per bedroom, and they count the living room as a sleeping area. So we did that research. We presented this to the Polk County Housing Continuum, which are service providers that work with the population that we serve. We mailed letters in the rental assistance checks to all of our landlords in their January payment that went out in December. And then we sent letters to all of our Section 8 clients on the program in mid-December, and hosted 2 public meetings the first week of January, January 6th and January 8th. We had about 30 people attend both of those meetings, and then the Housing Services Board held a hearing on Wednesday, January 15th. We had about 75 people attend that meeting. 10 people came up to speak. 9 had some concerns. 1 person was in favor. There are exceptions to the subsidy standard that can be attained through a medical reasonable accommodation. If we have a person that has medical equipment that they cannot store in their subsidy rate, they can be issued a second subsidy standard for another bedroom to store that medical equipment. There's reasonable accommodations for people that have mental health issues, physical disabilities, again regarding needs or equipment space that are needed. There is no for individuals that have intellectual disabilities and some physical disabilities that have caretakers, like if they work through Link Associates, where there's a live-in staff person that's called shared housing. It would not impact those individuals, nor would it impact anybody that has a live-in aid, as a live-in aid is provided their own bedroom subsidy. The impact, if this is adopted and approved, once fully implemented, it would take 12 months to implement from whatever that start date is, because it would occur at the client's next annual reexamination, which is the 12 months from when they entered the program. We have to meet with them every year. Full implementation would generate about $700,000 in additional rental assistance money, allowing us to serve another 140 families. As the Governing Board is aware, we have over 3,300 families on our waiting list. It was last opened in July of 2011 for 2 weeks, and we anticipate it's going to take us another 3 years before we can open that waiting list back again. The original recommendation was to begin with new entries effective April 1st, so anybody new coming in the program would fall under this new standard, and then to begin with existing clients at their next annual re-exam effective May 1st. There are options and opportunities the Governing Board can consider. Every year we do an agency plan. This is considered a significant amendment to that agency plan, which means it is impacting our current plan that's in place right now, so we had to have a 45-day public comment period. Our other agency plan changes that will be coming before this board in the next month or so would take effect July 1 of 14, which would give a 5-month opportunity for people to make arrangements and plan accordingly. It could be implemented in July of 15, which would give them 17 months. Or we could look at grandfathering in the existing tenants that would only impact them if they chose to relocate to another unit. Or you could deny the recommendation.
Quick question for clarification. You say once fully implemented, it would generate $700,000 in additional. Do you get so much money per family that you add to it? Is that how you're doing this? I mean, you get $5,000 a family or something?
Our average HAP is about $5,000 a family. Our rate is based on a proration from the federal government based on fair market rents and the number of vouchers that we issue. So it changes every month depending on how many 4-bedroom households we have versus how many 1-bedroom households we have.
So the idea here is to get your numbers up so you get more subsidy.
Right, to serve more families, yes, with the allocations we have.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You mentioned that we could decide a couple of things like the grandfathering and so forth. If all we did was vote moved the recommended action, what does that do?
If you move the recommended action as presented, the last two slides show the effective date, April 1st for anybody new coming into the program, and then a May 1st effective date for all the existing clients, which would give them about a 3-month notice.
So if we started, if that recommendation, the bottom bullet point, is the quickest implementation that you had kind of a continuum. We could delay it one more year, give them notice and wait a year. We could grandfather in everybody until they moved. Would those be the three options? Did I hear you right?
Correct.
Can you quickly tell us the fiscal impact on the second two? Doing this is how we create 700,000 and 100 new families.
Right. Well, if you delay the implementation until July 1 of 15, this impact would occur 15 or 17 months from now. That's when the revenues, over the course of 12 months, that's when that revenue would be available then to serve more families. I could not tell you the impact on grandfathering in tenants because it would be based on if they chose to relocate. We have about 30 people turnover monthly, but we do have some tenants that have been long-term tenants, and if they choose not to relocate, then their subsidy would not change or their subsidy standard would not change. So it would have a less of an impact, but there'd still be some impact, and then you would be doing no harm to those currently in the program.
So Doug, excuse me, go ahead.
No, my question quickly, just to get you to clarify that one point. So you have 30 families a month that move out?
Yeah, move out or are terminated from program violations.
Okay, so how many are you currently serving? How many families?
About 3,000.
So we're serving 3,000, we got 3,300 on waiting list. And the turnover is about 30, so we get about 330 openings as is per year. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's something like that?
Somewhere around, yeah.
Bob?
And it's a rotating number. It's not, we're not turning over the entire population. So, I mean, we're turning over 30 vouchers a month.
Yeah.
But it's some of the people coming in are exiting. So it's, we have people that have been in the program for 15 years.
Well, yeah, I get that.
Okay.
So Doug, are you saying we're going to get the same amount of money, but we're just going to spread it out farther so it can serve more families?
Correct.
So it won't change as far as the revenue's coming in?
Correct. It's a subsidy standard change. So again, it's a service level change. Families, a family of 3 right now would, well, that's not a good example because they would remain. A single parent right now would have a 2-bedroom. They would have a 1-bedroom subsidy.
And so, Doug, if I heard you correctly, then this program would be pretty much in line with other surrounding programs.
Yes, pretty much everybody in the state of Iowa has the similar language we're proposing or stricter language.
I think I have at least a thought on where my head is. I agree with the third bullet point that we should start effective April 1st. I think that's wise.
I think we have a speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At least one. Doug, you might hang close in case we have some other questions. Let's open it up if we have a speaker. At least one, I see. Anybody else at the moment? All right. Give us your name and address, if you would, please.
Okay, forgive me because I'm really nervous. My name is Melissa Delisle. You want my address? Sorry, 3513 Belmar Drive in Des Moines, Iowa.
3513 Belmar?
Yes.
Thank you.
Don't be nervous.
I'm so nervous.
Do you know how often we mess up here?
I'm not going to mess up. I'm going to do my best. So, should I go?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I'm here. I'm a single mom. I have 4 children, and I've been on the program for I don't really know how many years, quite a few. I qualify right now under the wording for a 4-bedroom. It took me a year to find a 3-bedroom, in which I've been in for 9 years now. Sorry, the way that this would affect me personally, I guess, is if it's changed. When my college student moves out this summer, I will have to go to a 2-bedroom. which will require me either, one, to move, or two, to pay an additional $275 a month out of my pocket on top of what I already pay for my portion. And for people that are on this program, that's pretty significant. I have two major concerns about the new wording. The first one being that 2 people to every bedroom. If you would just consider some of the thoughts that were spoken at the meetings regarding like an adult mother with a college-age son being in the same bedroom, or an adult father with an adult daughter. You could have an adult son at 23 being in with his sister at 13. You could have twins or teenagers that are 14 and 17 of opposite sex being placed together in the same bedroom. Just those kinds of things to me seem immoral and inappropriate in society in general. The other side of it is there sufficient housing, affordable housing in Des Moines? Took me a year to find a place, so if people really consider what this entails, trying to find a home is very hard. The expense of moving is not covered for anyone. We'll have to do that out of our pocket as well. Stress in a move being third behind death and divorce for especially families on disabilities with physical and mental abilities, just the stress of the move. The housing inspection that has to be done for the new home that you want to move into. You have to give a 30-day notice on this program in order to have your house even inspected to be qualified for. And then you only have 60 days to use your voucher, or you lose it. Once you lose this voucher, obviously you can't get back on the waiting list. So you really have to find a place. And I spoke to the director. We were talking about a little bit about how there's more demand than there actually is supply. So a lot of landlords ask for higher rent. And so I asked for options to look into from the director, in which I investigated his Go Section 8. If you want to look down that line, there's 64 places available, with the majority of those being 1 bedrooms or efficiencies. You only have two houses in Polk County listed on there for a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom. I can give you the list of those. Another suggestion was looking into the 5H housing program to buy a home. There are a lot of qualifications to that. You have to meet, you have to make at least $20,000 a year, in which I don't. There's only 8 houses in Polk County. I called the lofts downtown that say that they accept Section 8. However, if you take into the account of what they charge for rent, and then you have to calculate in utility allowances as well. I don't know if you're familiar with that with the program. They haven't had one person that's qualified that's applied for their housing. So there's significant challenges in just trying to find a home to move to, on top of all the other stresses. So I guess those are my main points. Just really hope that this isn't going to pass, but if you're going to consider it, I think it just, a lot of the people on this program at least deserve you to, to get some research on this and make a wise decision. In regards to what he was saying, I mean, they also get $74,000 more in administrative fees. They did send the notices out to landlords. However, from my own experience, my landlord threw that away. I don't know what the other landlords do. Clients, some of them don't even speak English, so I don't know if they even know what's going on right now, but hopefully you'll be able to make a good decision. So I guess that's all I would have to say. I would motion to receive my email into file. I did send everyone an email.
Yeah, would you give that Mr. Coleman, please?
I think we have it in our records.
Well,
Did you get a copy
let's
of it?
go ahead and,
I didn't send it to
I'll move
all
to
the
receive and
council.
file it, but I don't have a hard copy.
do you have an extra one, Melissa?
It has some asterisks, but you can certainly have it.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
Aye.
Thank you.
We have, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Melissa, could I ask you one other question? Our director said that he had some meetings. Did you attend any of those meetings?
I did attend the first public housing meeting. I wish I would have went to the second, but I did not. And the exact date of that meeting, is that what you would like?
Yeah, no, I just
did attend
wondered
the
if you
first.
had a chance to attend and had voiced any position during that hearing or that opportunity.
I did. I was one of the speakers. I've sent him emails. I have spoken to Doug on a couple of occasions, and yes, I've certainly made this aware. And I've asked if those comments and things were given to this council, because I think it's important that you consider everything that was presented at those meetings as well. But
I do too. I appreciate it very much.
yeah, thank you.
Melissa,
Go ahead.
you said you're a single mother of 4,
I am.
and one's going off to college this year.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes.
It's good to
Yeah.
hear a
Thank you.
success story. I'm going to let you know because I was late coming in and got called out for a while.
okay.
In fairness to the director, I'm going to pass on this, but I appreciate the fact you came in here and gave your part. Chances are I would have voted yes, but I don't think it would be fair to vote either way without hearing all of Doug's, so.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate what they're trying to do. I know there's a lot of budget cuts, but it does affect a lot of families, and it's kind of scary for me, but I've done my best, and
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.
You know, Ms. Coleman, I think maybe one thing we could do, if it doesn't adversely impact where you're going, Doug, that maybe we could put it on a workshop agenda and have sort of an open discussion around some of our options. If we could put it on the next one, for instance, and then maybe move this in 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's no impact of delaying a vote on this at all. So that would be fine.
Does that sound reasonable to everybody, that we might
Yeah.
Sure.
want to discuss that a little further? I see what you're trying to do, Doug, and I think it probably, strategy at the outset looks like it makes some sense, but I think that a resident here has some concerns about it. I think we ought to take a pretty hard look at it.
Sounds great.
So if we could have a motion to do that.
I'll move to take this up in 3 or 4 weeks at an appropriate time after we've been able to discuss it at a workshop. And as long as we're going to delay it, I guess, maybe having some detailed information on that mobility, the turnover rate, and what that does in terms of allowing us to start to serve new families. Maybe we pick up the grandfathering quicker, so I'd be interested in that.
Doug, if this would pass, do we have enough facilities to handle all these additional people?
Yeah, we have not seen, in the 3+ years I've been director, our success rate of lease-up has been consistently at 76%. So 76% of every client that receives a voucher is finding a unit. Historically, the 24% that are not finding a unit is due to some landlord background information. They've been evicted, bad credit, things that we don't screen for on our side of it.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
So those are the new ones?
yes, 76% of everybody coming into the program finds a unit in Polk County.
Okay, so, Mr. Manager, at least in terms of our initial discussion, does it sound reasonable we could put it on a near-term workshop?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because this ought to be moved up pretty quick, I
At the next
think.
one.
Because we don't want to hold your program up either.
So, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, at the next workshop agenda 2 weeks from today, we could put it on that agenda, and then if it seems appropriate, we could be ready for council to take action on that same council meeting.
Sounds good.
Well, let's see how it goes, and we
Yeah,
can make
if you're-
that
if you're
decision at
prepared,
that
yeah.
date. Let's see. Thank,
Perfect.
everybody okay? All right, all in favor, I think, did we vote on this?
Not yet.
Okay, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Could we have a further motion to adjourn as Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board? And would it
So
be?
moved.
And then let's reconvene as City Council? I'm what? Maybe we'll just cancel it. Okay, let's just adjourn. Motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We said adjourned. We're going to move pretty quickly into our city council meeting, but prior to our beginning of that, we're going to have a quick message from our own city council member, Skip Moore, and I would ask that everybody who would participate with us stand at this time.
This is a quote from somebody that passed away in 1519. Life is pretty simple. You do some stuff, most fails, some works. You do more of what works. If it works big, others quickly copy it. Then you do something else. The trick is doing something else. Leonardo da Vinci. Thank you.
Okay, We now, I ask that we begin our city council meeting, and I will ask the clerk to begin by taking roll.
County,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Mahaffey. Here. Voss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Could we have a motion for that, please?
Move.
It's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes. Item 3 is approving the consent agenda. Tonight, these are items 3 through 40, and these are routine items and will generally be enacted as one vote, except for any item that may be pulled off by a city council member or a member of the audience, which will be reconsidered individually and addressed and then voted on after that. Items tonight for consent are again 3 through 40. Item 5, Councilmember Gray wishes to speak. Item 5A, Councilmember Coleman votes no. Item 6, Councilmember Gray wants to speak. Item 8B, Councilmember Moore wishes to speak. Are there any other items that anybody in the audience would like to have polled for further clarification or discussion? Seeing none, could we ask for a motion for the balance, please?
Move.
It's been moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes. It takes us to item 5. Item 5 is consideration of renewal of alcoholic beverage license applications for Nat Food Mart at 1443 2nd Avenue. It was continued from January 13th of 2014. A is a Class E liquor license, and B is a Class C beer permit. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to continue this from the earlier meeting because many of the businesses on 2nd Avenue are impacted by the amount of people that have been milling around, especially last summer, at Nat's Liquors. And I wanted to get an understanding of what we were trying to do because it was not conducive to good business. I want to thank City Legal for putting together a good neighbor agreement. I was glad to see they signed that. They're putting some safeguards in to prevent future happenings down there. I feel a little more confident, and I'm willing to move that we grant them their 5A and 5B.
Okay. Mr. Coleman voted no on A.
5 yes.
Takes us to item 6, which is consideration of renewal of a Class C liquor license for Galaxy Bar and Grill at 2718 Douglas Avenue. Zoning Department recommends denial. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. The question I have on this, I believe that the Planning Department is doing the right thing. It's don't respond to any requests for audited books, so I think we should rescind it. But my question is voting yes a denial or voting no a denial?
There is a corrected item that has been passed out that's in your materials. The motion is, if it's read verbatim, will be helpful and will answer your question, which is moved by whomever to deny for failure to submit a requested audit to verify restaurant use to meet zoning requirements.
Thank you. And I will move to deny.
Is there anybody in the audience to speak to this item?
So then yes is affirming denial.
Yes is denial.
Yes is denied. Kind of hard to get the vernacular down.
5 yes.
All right, takes us to 8, item B. These are public improvements, ordering construction of the following. B is the Fire Station Number 10, re-roofing, receiving of bids, 2/25/14, setting date of hearing of 3/10/14, and a construction estimate of $58,000. Council Communication Number 14-24. Mr. Moore.
Well, I asked the question on this, how old the building is, and evidently it's about 15 years old. I don't think anybody in this room would purchase a brand-new house and expect to be replacing the roof in 15 years. As a matter of fact, I don't think anybody would purchase a brand-new building and expect the roof to last 15 years. I know this needs to be done, and I'm going to move it. However, I wanted to point out this is what happens when our hands are tied and we have to take low bidders. I think this is definitely a result of that. It couldn't be a tree falling on the building, because I know the building very well, and there's never been a tree near it. They were all removed. So I just wanted to stand on my soapbox tonight and point that out to people, that our hands are tied, and it's unfortunate because now our residents are standing on the arch. I'll move 8B.
Mr. Moore, council members, I appreciate your comment about that, and I haven't really had a chance to talk to our staff, and I don't know the details about it, but as to your fundamental point that a building that's 15 years old has a major roof repair doesn't seem right to me. And whether or not that's a function of the bidding process or something else, I don't know. But I do think we had to go back and ask some questions about why this particular building needs this kind of an investment at this point in time. You know, maybe it was in the specifications of it, maybe it was something the way it was designed and constructed, I don't know. But it's a fair question, and my intention is, with your comments, Mr. Moore, is to look into that a little bit and get you a definitive answer. I suspect the answer is in something to do with the design and construction of it.
Chief, did you want to make a comment?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, John Takip, Chief of the Fire Department. While I would agree with Council Member Moore on a lot of things about that roof, the council should know that when it was built in 1999, the building was built to last for 10 years. I'm not saying anything else about the quality, but I was asked to have a building built that would last for 10 years. It's now in its 15th year.
How much did we pay for that building?
I'd have to ask engineering, but I think the construction cost was around $550,000.
The building was supposed to last 10 years, or the roof was supposed to last 10 years?
The facility as a fire station was supposed to be 10 years.
Chief,
Really?
I know you weren't. I know you weren't the chief then, but aren't there other inherent problems with that building that we realized after the building was built, like it actually slants a little bit, the slab does, and
We could probably have a pretty long conversation about Fire Station 10, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Six yes.
All right, that takes us, I think, to item 41.
Yeah.
That completes the consent agenda, and 41 actually is a hearing item, so hearings are not to open till 5 o'clock, so let's move to item 48, which is the Southwest 14th Street Quiet Street Conceptual Plan, Council Communication number 14-031. Do we want to make a, Mr. Manager, any presentation on this, or should we just open it up for public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have Ben Page just say a few words about the process that he's gone through and what this recommendation is. It's all right, we have time.
Mayor County, members of the Des Moines City Council, Ben Page, Director of Parks and Recreation. Thank you for the brief opportunity to tell you a little background about the Quiet Street proposal. In 2011, in June to be specific, we had a bicycle and trail master plan approved by the City Council for the purposes of making our city more bicycle friendly. And from there, that plan identified 3 major projects that would hit that mark for us. One was a quiet street. And I'm going to read you the definition of what a quiet street is because sometimes people ask me a lot, what does that mean? They're also known as neighborhood greenways or bicycle boulevards. A quiet street is a lower volume, lower speed street in which motorists and bicyclists share the same space through the aid of signage, pavement markings, traffic calming elements, intersection treatments, and traffic diversion elements that help establish it as a preferential route for bicyclists. So knowing that our plan identified 3 priorities, we began with the first priority, which was connecting 2 major destinations in our community on the south side, Blank Park Zoo and Grays Lake. And if I could have the overhead just for a brief moment here, you can see a great visual of why that was important. All right, here we go, thank you. And what you see here is a little outline of the city, and in purple is the city's trail plan, our off-street trail facilities. And in the dotted lines, you see future multi-use trail connections. And as you can see, that solid red line is the proposed route of this quiet street. You can see that where Grays Lake is here and where the zoo is down here. You can see that we're currently not served by a off-street trail system today, so the plan was trying to find a way for bicyclists to commute between those 2 areas, but also connect to our trail system. So in doing so, we began having a number of public input meetings, approximately 7 off of top of my memory here. We had 2 with the affected neighborhood associations, as well as invited the general public to attend those meetings. But we also involved the Park and Recreation Board, Traffic and Safety Committee, and the Trails and Greenways Subcommittee of the Park Board. And we held a number of meetings with our colleagues behind me. We had representation from cities' departments of police, fire, engineering, public works, and community development. And we all came together to help address some of the concerns with the proposed process because it's a new element to the city, something we don't have today. In fact, what our research tells us, there's not a quiet street in the state of Iowa yet either. So what we have today to you is a proposal to move forward beyond the conceptual side and move into design phase here and have our city's first quiet street.
Okay. And we've had neighborhood meetings, and as I understand, the neighborhoods have pretty much embraced this up and down the line. Is that correct?
We never took an official vote, but we did see clear support of all means we had to move forward with this. We did have 2 neighborhood meetings. We didn't call them exactly neighborhood meetings. We identified those neighborhoods that were affected, but identified the entire public because we believe this is a regional facility. It's part of a trail system. So we did have 1 commitment from the Grays Lake neighborhood that they adopted this as part of their neighborhood plan, and we did not get a yes or a no from the other neighborhood, Watrous South.
Okay. All right, is there anybody to speak on this item? If not, any,
I think Max.
all right, looks like we have a speaker. Step forward, sir. Give us your name and address.
Max Nauer, 4503 Wakanda Parkway. Mr. Mayor, councilman, and I would usually say woman, I'm representing Watrous South Neighborhood Association and am advised to pass along our support in our last meeting, and we hold meetings quarterly. Our last meeting was in October. There was a general consensus at that time in an informal discussion about this quiet street proposal that we supported it. And at the Parks Board meeting in which this was presented, I spoke as an individual. Today I speak representing the Board of Watrous South Neighborhood Association in support. Thank you.
Max, thank you. All right, so now both neighborhoods have spoken. All right, let's go ahead and close this. Any motion?
It'd be my pleasure to move this.
No.
And I'd also like to thank Parks and Rec for taking the lead on this on-street addition to Des Moines.
Okay.
Six yes.
All right, we have a request. Councilmember Coleman would like to bring back, if the council would so allow, item 30 for reconsideration. Could we, somebody give us a motion to reconsider number 30?
I'll move that, and I'd appreciate it.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Coleman. Item 30 is the 2013 U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD Continuum of Care Program Application, Council Communication Number 14-042. Mr. Coleman.
Thank you for allowing me to bring this up because there's a couple of comments I want to make related to the action that's before us. I left our workshop this morning and ended up working on this all day long. There are a lot of people strongly invested on a volunteer and their professional work to serving the homeless in our community. And over the last couple of years, the Homeless Coordinating Council, along with a group of volunteers that are the Continuum of Care, it's a term that's used here in this letter, have worked hard to try and get to a new day in terms of coordination of the services that are geared towards the homeless population. And we have a lot of good things going at that end. And I think at no time in our history have we had as many people thinking forward about how to do this. The last week or so has created some difficulty. And the grant application in front of us asks, one of the things that we get points for is whether or not a local community has what HUD calls a charter, kind of a game plan for how the community organizes itself to spend the money that we get from HUD, in this case, a couple $1 million. And so today's action is important because today we can't in good faith check that box and get those points. For most of the day, I've been in meetings with the providers. There's been a lot of strong feelings about elements of a proposed charter that we had worked on the last couple of months. And what I can tell you is that after a meeting I've been at the last couple of hours, I think there's an agreement on some concessions to the current draft of the charter that could be approved by the end of the week. This grant is due next Monday. And so what I would propose, in the spirit of kind of finishing this and getting to the finish line with as many points as possible in hopes of drawing down the maximum amount of dollars from HUD, that we approve the grant as it's written here, but that we also authorize the staff to change the grant so long as a charter is approved by the end of the week. We can't tell them to check that box if it's not true, but I shared this concept with the city manager as a way to authorize he and his staff or designee to do that. Mr. Lester, I'd appreciate your kind of legal opinion on this. This is kind of all unfolded in the last hour or so, but I think it is a good opportunity for the council to be nimble and allow the community to score as many points as possible, so long as a charter could be approved by Thursday or Friday. If it's not approved, the application would be submitted as it's written today. I could go into a lot more details on some of the nuances of how the charter might be changed from what was not approved last week. It failed, but that's really technical stuff, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My question would be whether or not the council wants to place parameters on what would be contained within the charter. Is it a charter that's acceptable to the manager, or is it if any charter is approved?
Yeah. Rick, I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I mean, I shared most of this with him just a few minutes ago, but I would say one would be that the members of the Homeless Coordinating Council, if the City of Des Moines reps support a charter that eventually is approved, then I think that we could do it. That would be one criteria.
Let me try to understand what Mr. Coleman, that you're proposing here. So this evening there is an item on the agenda asking for the council to submit an application for funds. I think the amount is $2.6 million, so it's a very significant amount of funds that would help with homelessness in our community. And one of the attributes about the application that is not resolved, however, is, I think you referred to it as the governance or the charter, which is essentially the apparatus that sort of oversees these dollars. And if I understand the process, and I'm kind of looking to Chris Johansson back here on this, essentially the process that you're dealing with is one that is established by HUD, and it requires a certain process that's not necessarily vested in the City of Des Moines or the City Council to establish this charter that essentially sets out how these funds would be managed over a period of time. There was an attempt to pass a charter governance structure last week. It failed. If I understand your proposal, Mr. Coleman, it is that if there's a reconfiguration of that vote with a different proposal, and if that vote succeeds, then your hope would be that that could be placed into the application and the application submitted. And the reason for all this sort of gyration is the fact that the application is awarded additional points if this particular issue is resolved. So it's advantageous to the community that that happen. The matter of discretion, it seems to me, is I suppose if the way the motion is made, it would be up to me as the city manager to judge that that vote occurred and to amend the application that goes forward. However, because the charter itself is really subject to this vote of people, it's not really necessarily within my purview to amend it. It's whatever that thing is. The only thing I guess I would do at that point is if it looked like it didn't comply with law, I probably wouldn't approve it and submit it. But if it looked like it met the parameters of federal law and federal regulation based on consultation with our city attorney and appropriate staff, then my inclination would be to go ahead and follow the council's authorization if you give it and submit the application with those provisions in place. If there was a vote and it was done appropriately in accord with law and we could submit the application, that would certainly be a good thing to do because it makes the application stronger. So I hope that's close to what you're
Any other comments? Anybody? Okay, Mr. Coleman, just briefly, what does your motion now look like?
I move the item 30, further authorizing the city manager to update the application if a charter is approved that meets the regulatory and legal requirements.
Otherwise,
the grant as written is submitted.
okay, any questions? All right.
Thanks for letting me have a
All in
chance to
favor,
talk.
say aye.
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 Opposed? The item passes. Since it's 4:58, why don't we quickly recess as city council? We just did it.
No.
Do we have an extra?
Yeah, there's.
Oh, sorry. All right. Scratch that. Let's go to, we have one extra item. This is an item that was filed after 5 p.m. on Wednesday. We have only one. It's approving a memorandum of agreement with the Des Moines Area Regional Transit Authority, DART, to establish policies and procedures relating to operation of the Center Street Park and Ride facilities, and I sponsored it. There's a council communication on it, 14-043. Mr. Manager, did you quickly want to highlight this piece?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the agenda, as the mayor just described, is an item which calls for approval of a memorandum of agreement between the City of Des Moines and DART. This deals with the matter of the park and ride facility and how the funds that are generated by that facility are to be used. Issues arose some time ago with the federal government in terms of their review and audit of that program, and it was really in the context of their review of DART that some questions were raised. The very good news out of all this is that with extensive investigation conducted by the federal government, by city staff, and by DART, we have arrived at what is a very good agreement, very consistent with what I believe the City Council has wanted to have all along. and what's on your agenda this evening for your review and approval, and I do recommend it to you. If the council approves it tonight, it will go to the DART Commission. My understanding is they will take it up and approve it, and then it goes on to the federal government for their review as well. I do want to say that throughout this process, there's been a number of individuals that have been very helpful in doing all of the work that's necessary to address all the questions that were out there. Scott Sanders, our Assistant City Manager, former Finance Director, has been heavily involved. He and his staff have done an incredible amount of work of pouring through records to gather all the financial data and report that back to the federal investigators. City Attorney Jeff Lester, his staff, Larry McDowell, have done similar great work. Jennifer Bohack, Jeb Brewer from engineering did a lot of work on it as well. So it was a real team effort of working with federal folks and the DART folks that got us to this point. But I should also mention that Mayor County has been extraordinarily helpful in weighing into it and providing his leadership on the matter and helping us get to a point of resolution. One particular point, or actually 2 points about the agreement itself, I think are worth mentioning. There are no funds that need to be repaid back to the federal government. That's a very good thing. That's what we thought all along, but it's been confirmed with this agreement. Two, the council's decision in prior years to utilize some of these park and ride revenues to underwrite transit services in the city of Des Moines for our citizens by making payments to DART. That process is not prohibited at all by the new agreement. So if council decides to do that in the future, they can continue to do that. That is a very good thing because it maintains the level of transit services in the city for our citizens and also holds down the DART tax rate. The amount that you've been doing, council, has been about $680,000 a year. You'll be able to continue doing that. And the last thing I want to point out is that the matter of the policy decisions around the use of funds that are generated by this facility remains within the council's discretion here. There have been discussion about doing something different with it, about having the funds go to some other entity. This agreement squarely leaves those decisions, the policy decisions about the use of those dollars, in the hands of the City Council, which I believe is totally appropriate. Your decisions in this regard must comply with federal law. There is a process that's been worked out with our friends at DART where they review for compliance with federal law to make sure the funds are used for an appropriate, legally allowed transit purpose. That's all fair and appropriate, but the basic policy decision as to how those funds are going to be used in the future resides in the council's hand, as it should be, and as you stipulated in your agreement when the park and ride facility was constructed, 14, 15 years ago. So with that, Mayor, I send it back to you, but I do recommend this. It's a great piece of work and a resolution to a lot of issues and questions that have been asked over the last year or so.
All right, any questions anybody might have? Anybody in the audience? Seeing none, could we have a motion to approve?
So move. I might speak as a member of the DART board. I think people did a great job in getting this to come around. At first, when the FTA got involved, I thought for sure we were going to be really obligated to pay a lot of money, and it worked out well, and thank you for all your efforts.
Good, thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Absolutely.
6 yes.
All right, let's note that at 5:04, we're going to open our hearings, and beginning with item 41. 41 is on the request of Quick Trip, Inc., doing business as Tobacco Outlet Plus to rezone 3301 East Euclid Avenue from C1 Neighborhood Retail Commercial and FW Floodway to Limited C2 General Retail and Highway-Oriented Commercial, U1 Floodplain and FW Floodway to allow a future conditional use application for continued use of the property for a business where more than 40% of the gross receipts from the sales may be derived from sale of beer, wine, or tobacco products, and continuing the hearing on the portions to be rezoned U1 and FW. A, under that is the first consideration of the ordinance above to approve the rezoning for only that part to be rezoned to limited C2, general retail and highway-oriented commercial. B, is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant, requires 6 votes, and it looks like C has been withdrawn. Is there anybody here to speak to this item, the request from Quick Trip at 3301 East Euclid? Yes, sir.
Mayor, County, City Council members, Jim Wine, Nyemaster Good Firm, 700 Walnut Street, Suite 1600 in Des Moines. I'm here representing Quick Trip, which operates a tobacco outlet store at 3300 East Euclid. They have operated at this location for approximately 4 years and operated at a location along East Euclid a few blocks away, this store for another 10 or 12 years prior to that. This rezoning is requested not to really change not in any way to change the existing operation, but to allow Quick Trip to continue its existing operation at that location. Because of the changes in regulations relating to sales of beer, wine, and tobacco, the current operation cannot continue at that location in terms of selling beer and wine. What happened is when they originally applied back in the when this store was originally operating, it was permitted as a grocery store and could sell beer and wine up to 50% of its sales. Beer and wine have never exceeded that amount. In fact, they're around 11% of the sales at that store. 11 to 12% are beer and wine sales. The City Council changed the ordinance and said that in the neighborhood retail, and not just for that location, but said that you can't have it for you can no longer have over 40% of the sales from beer, wine, or tobacco in that location in this type of zoning district. By throwing in tobacco into the mix, and given that it is a tobacco store, the combined sales of beer, wine, and tobacco do exceed 40%. So in order to continue their existing operation, they're requesting a rezoning from C1 to C2. The tenant, Quick Trip, has requested this rezoning change. However, the landlord, the property owner, has also agreed to it. There was a neighborhood meeting held, and we understand there was no objection to it. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval. Quick Trip has agreed to, and the property owner have both agreed to several additional conditions in terms of limiting several uses on the site that none of us would like to see. And we've also agreed not to have a Class E liquor permit. In other words, basically there would never be any hard liquor sales at this location. And there's also an issue about the floodway. There was, when we originally submitted it, the conversations with staff were such that there was going to be a rezoning to the floodplain. After they looked at it, they said, well, they want part of it now to be rezoned to floodway, which neither the property owner nor Quick Trip have any objection to, but it's going to require some further mapping of the floodway in order to do that. So tonight, we're just asking that you rezone the C1 to C2 to allow it to continue, particularly given that this will be an issue for beer sales after February 1. So I also have with me tonight John Rewerts from Quick Trip, who's happy to, and the store manager, and they're happy to answer any questions. Want to say anything, John?
No, John Rewerts, 1106 Woodring Drive, Waverly, Iowa. I actually live a couple hours away. I am the district leader for this.
We'll give you a chance to locate in Des Moines if you need one. We'll find you out.
I am the district leader for this location and also the next location that we're going to discuss. And I just want to reiterate that understanding the changes in the ordinances We are most definitely not a liquor store. We are what I would call a convenience store that emphasizes tobacco sales, and approximately 11% of our sales derive from alcohol, which is strictly beer sales. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but 70% of our sales do come from cigarettes. So that's what puts us into this category that requires the rezoning. So again, I just hope that you guys will allow us to do that and change our zoning to C2.
What percentage?
Our
Cigarettes?
for cigarettes, 70%.
70.
70, yes.
Wow.
John, who's responsible for notifying the neighborhoods of the meeting that was held?
We did that. Our company, Quick Trip, we received information. There was so many feet that we had to go out from the property. We notified all those property owners a couple weeks in advance of the meeting that we had. And basically, it was an open house at our store that we welcomed anybody to come in and ask any questions or express concerns at that time.
Okay, you just answered one question. I was going to, how were they notified?
They were notified by mail.
By mail?
Yes.
Okay. And the meeting was to be held there at the Tobacco Hut?
Yep.
And nobody attended?
Nobody attended.
Okay. You are aware of one of the neighborhoods, Fairmont Park, has opposed this. The store doesn't fall in a neighborhood to start with, so. Also, you haven't changed any of your operations since you moved from East 26 in Euclid. It was the same up there as it is where you're at now.
Correct. The only addition that we've made is grocery items. That's the only change that we made to our operation.
You're way less residential than where you used to be.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? Okay, any discussion, council? Anybody else from the audience to speak? Any questions?
I'd make some comment. It's in my ward there. They've been operating without any difficulty for a long period of time, both up a little farther west and there. And that the only reason is to bring this to our attention so they can operate legally out of that place there on Euclid location. So I know I talked to one neighborhood leader and they have no problem with it. The other one did respond on a card that Fairmont, like Skip said, they were in opposition. So.
All right, we have motion.
I'll make a motion we approve this item, 41A and B.
Christine?
Yes, I agree.
Six yes, one no.
All right. Item 41 passes 41A and B.
Can I ask okay, so the readings were waived as part of the process. Thank you.
Item 42, on request from Quick Trip, Inc., doing business as Tobacco Outlet Plus to rezone 3409 Southwest 9th Street from C1 Neighborhood Retail Commercial to Limited C2 General Retail and Highway-Oriented Commercial to allow a future conditional use application for continued use of the property for a business where more than 40% of the gross receipts from sales may be derived from the sale of beer, wine, or tobacco products. The resolution to deny the request is A, or B, which is an alternate resolution to approve the request. The first consideration of the ordinance above is 1 under that, and 2 is a final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver again is requested by the applicant and again requires 6 votes. Let's go ahead and open the hearing on that one. Mr. Wine, would you like to make an additional Presentation.
Yes, Jim Wine representing Quick Trip, Master Good Firm, 700 Walnut Street in Des Moines. This is essentially the same situation, although we don't have a favorable recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission, but it's factually from Quick Trip standpoint the same situation. This store has been operating for a number of years at this location as well as at a nearby location since the mid-1990s. It was permitted as a grocery store where under the prior ordinance you couldn't exceed 50% of sales for beer and wine. It's never sold liquor from this location, has only sold beer, as well as tobacco products and groceries. Under the new ordinance, not more than 40% of the sales can be from beer, wine, or tobacco. I understand the beer sales have been 11 or 12% at this location, but when you combine beer and tobacco, it will exceed the 40% requirement. We are also, if we don't have this rezoning, the Quick Trip will no longer be able to sell beer at this location after the existing license expires, is how I understand the requirement as it's being interpreted. So what Quick Trip is requesting is a rezoning from C1 to C2. We believe it would allow the store to continue to operate in essentially its existing, in its existing format. The property owner and the tenant have signed a statement imposing the same additional restrictions that were imposed on the East Euclid site, that is to allow certain offensive uses that none of us want in the district as rezoned, and also to impose a requirement that hard liquor not be sold. My understanding is the staff recommended against it because it felt that there was not any surrounding C2 use. We don't disagree with that, but we don't disagree that there isn't. We disagree with the recommendation, but not the fact that there isn't any surrounding C2 use. This is essentially, we would point out that it's unusual that there was no ability to, in the way the ordinance was crafted, to continue a non-conforming use in effect. And so the only choice that Quick Trip has is to request a rezoning. And so we do request the rezoning. If it were to be denied, the only alternative left for Quick Trip is to request a variance. And I guess in the alternative of a rezoning, we would request support from the council for a variance request. I know you can't grant a variance, but apparently, but I'd just like to express that request for support. I do want to submit tonight a petition that I received from the Quick Trip store, and if you need more information about this, I'll have the Quick Trip representative explain. But it's from there. That was something that was maintained at the corner of at the counter of the store, indicating support for the ability to continue to sell beer and wine and tobacco products at this location. It's signed by over 500 customers. If I could submit this to the city clerk.
I'll take that and move to receive and file.
Okay.
It's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Wine.
Okay. Anything else from Quick Trip?
I really don't have anything to add beyond what I discussed at the previous location. Really, as Mr. Wine mentioned, same situation. Really the same sales mix as the previous location that we discussed. Beer sales don't exceed more than 11% of overall sales. tobacco is roughly 70 to 75% of our overall sales receipts. So be happy to answer any questions on this location that you might have.
Any questions? Anybody?
I assume the notices were the same as the other one.
Yep, same procedure, same steps.
And except to go to the store on Southwest 9th for the meeting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, this
Yes.
is Chris. Could you ask Mike Ludwig to come to the podium? Because I'd like him to address the differences between this request and the previous request, because there is a difference.
Mayor, County, members of the council, Michael Ludwig, Planning Administrator. I think the primary difference between this request from the staff standpoint and the previous request was that the entire corridor in the vicinity of this rezoning is zone C1. And in the previous item, there was quite a bit of C2 zoning in the close proximity to that request. The other major difference, I think, between the two requests was proximity of church, school, daycare, park to the proposed business. The previous location met all of the separation requirements if they were to go to the Board of Adjustment for a conditional use permit. The item before you currently would not comply with the separation distance from a church. And then it was also noted, I think, in the Plan and Zoning Commission information in your packet, there was a comment made that it's outside of the distance that's required by code, but they noted there was a park also in the close vicinity of the area. So the primary differences on this are that there isn't really any C2 zoning in close proximity to this, and if it went to the Board of Adjustment for a conditional use permit, you would have to seek a variance to separation distances also. If the zoning is denied, they could request a use variance from the Board of Adjustment, and at that time also request variance to the separation distance. Thank you.
Christine, did that cover your question?
It did. Thank you very much.
What church is it? Do you know? Is it Christ the King that's that close? Or what-
No,
what
it's
would be
not.
the close?
It's not Christ the King, Chris.
There's some discussion that was, one person on Plan Zoning said it had been there for a long time. Another one said that the church came after the store. And was that ever worked out, Mike? Which was the first?
In the P&Z letter, it indicated that there was
I think it indicated that the church had been there since the 70s, but it hadn't actually.
yeah, it's had an occupancy permit since 2007, but one of the commissioners noted the church had been there for a great number of years beyond that.
Yeah.
But the other one, another one said that the church came there after the facility was built. Vicky.
Yeah. I think that was in reference to they were asked when the church received a certificate of occupancy, and that was in 2007. But the other commissioner noted that, having lived in the area, that the church had been there well beyond that.
Well, do you have the address of the church?
I do not.
It's 3409 Southwest 9th. Is this location? So I think probably if you went there, you could probably find what you're looking for.
Next to a hardware store.
Yeah, the church is at 3504 Southwest 9th Street.
And what's the name of the church, Mike?
I do not have the name of the church.
Okay.
In staff report. It's 102 feet southwest of this subject property.
And so the P&Z vote was 11-2 to deny, is that correct?
Deny this.
Yes. Mayor, I'd make a motion to uphold the P&Z recommendation and move 42A.
Okay. We have a motion on A, which is a resolution to deny the request.
Correct. And allow them to go before the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
I think what really concerns me is the difference in the location of where it is with all the different residential in one area and not as, and the businesses on the east side over there was pretty much C2 area over there.
Bob, that's a rationale to support Christine's motion. I'm just trying to make sure I'm right.
7 yes.
All right, that takes us on to item 43, which are items regarding 4140 East 14th Street, CNS Properties 2 LC. A is approving an amendment to the Des Moines 2020 Community Character Land Use Plan to change the future land use designation from commercial, auto-oriented, small-scale strip development to general industrial. B is a hearing to rezone the property from C2, general retail and highway-oriented commercial, to limited M1, light industrial, to allow the expansion of a legal non-conforming light industrial use with outdoor storage. C is the first consideration of the ordinance above. D is the final consideration of the ordinance above, and the waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. Let's open the hearing for item 43 regarding 4140 East 14th Street.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Chris Pose, office address 317 6th Avenue, Suite 300, here on behalf of the applicant. The request is simply to allow Seneca Environmental Services, who occupies the property under lease, and it's what I would call a friendly lease because the owners are principals of the Seneca business, to put light industrial, or actually put warehouse buildings on their site. The history of this particular site has been occupied by the McKenna Davis truck establishment, I think beginning back in the 1970s. In the 1990s, Seneca has occupied it for their environmental services division and have been a good neighbor to the neighbors that surround them. They sell a good amount of material which is prone to thievery, certainly in terms of its use and ability to get into the site. They'd like to put much of that material inside a building if they can, and they would build the building at this location in the south west corner of the site, an extension to get some of that material inside. When they went to the city staff and asked for permission to build the building, the staff felt that the area had gone from beyond C2 to more of a warehouse or a limited M1 area, and asked the applicant to go ahead and rezone the property, and that's the process that they have completed. Part of the site is zoned C2 presently, which is designated on the map here and shaded. And another part of the site, not subject to consideration, is zoned residential immediately to the west. There is no proposal to change any of the residential boundary or buffer that separates the Seneca operation from the neighborhood to the immediate west. The neighbors that appeared both at a neighborhood meeting and supported the request indicated no resistance to it. And also the Highland Park Neighborhood Association was contacted and did indicate support for the request. There's no proposal to change any of the boundaries or use of the particular site. This is merely to allow, long story short, the applicant to use the site in a better way and suited to its particular use. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have with regard to the request and request all items be approved as part of the agenda tonight.
Anybody have any questions, Mr. Pose?
When we go into this council discussion, I've got something that I feel like I've got to bring up.
Yep. All right. Any other questions? All right. Any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. Let's open up for discussion. Mr. Moore.
I really want to pass this tonight, but I think I have to bring another issue up in front of the council, and I apologize to everybody. When I turned in my questions this morning, maybe my handwriting wasn't quite clear. I did ask the question and it came out as 4140 East 14th. My question was for 4141 East 14th, which is directly across the street to the east. It was in front of us on November 17th of 2011 to be rezoned as M1, and we denied that based on P&Z's recommendation to preserve the 2020 land use plan. What I'm going to do is move that we continue this till the next council meeting and refer it back to staff and legal to take a look at that, because I don't want us to put our neck in a noose on this one.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So, just so I understand a little bit of the history, there was a denial on a property directly across the street, same
The one across
M1.
the street, yeah, it was M1, and it's more industrial across the street to the east.
Okay.
So I feel as though we need to have legal and staff take another look at this.
Is this time sensitive, this issue?
The only, Chris Pose again, that time-sensitive issue is they merely want to get started with their site plan process so they can start building these buildings by spring. As an alternative, what I might offer is, I think we've been through the discussions with the staff, and there was no objection indicated to us about rezoning this particular piece. And the rezoning is limited such that the only uses that are going to be allowed, in addition to C2 uses, would be for this light warehousing. Rather than defer the whole item, would it be possible just to have the first reading of the ordinance considered and then defer the second and third readings to allow for Councilman Moore's questions to be answered by the staff? I think the staff can readily distinguish between this site and anything that might have been proposed across the street, but this is for a long-standing business that's been at this location, and they're not desiring to do anything different than they have for the last 20-some years.
I wouldn't have a problem with voting through in 2 weeks as long as we're clear and we're not putting ourselves in a position of a lawsuit. So I think either way you'll get it either passed or not 2 weeks, but I think it's a legal question we need to ask.
I think that my only suggestion on approving the first reading first is we take care of the public hearing tonight, we get it done, and then the second and third readings would come forward, and I think the staff can answer those questions beforehand. I think if we continue the public hearing again, then we've got to probably renotice it or
Okay.
I'll
withdraw my motion. I'll move this one for tonight.
So 43A, B, and C, and not do D on the final consideration.
And they're actually just expanding their area there, their business, aren't they, Chris?
They're going to, yes, that's correct. Mr. Matthew. They're using the same area that they always have been using. They just want to put a building on it to get some of the material that's outside indoors.
And refer to planning and legal to make sure that we're...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
For their recommendation. All right, that ought to be very clear, huh?
We appreciate the investment in Des Moines.
Christine?
Yes.
7 yes.
Item 44, on the conveyance of 1302 4th Street and 2820 East 38th Street to the Greater Des Moines Habitat for Humanity for $9,800. Council Communication number 14-039. Is there anybody in the audience to speak on this item? All right. Seeing none, let's close the hearing. Do we have a comment or motion?
I'll move item 44.
All right. Item 44 has been moved. Any discussion?
Seven yes.
Right. Item 45 on the conveyance of a permanent easement for recreational trail and permanent access easement to the Polk County Conservation Board for the Army Post Bridge Great Western Trail Project for $1. Is there anybody in the audience to speak to this?
If there's no one to speak, I'll move item 45.
All right, let's close the hearing. The item's been moved. Any discussion? Seeing none.
7 yes.
All right, item 46 on the conveyance of a permanent underground electric line easement on city-owned property east of Southeast 12th Street and north of East Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway to Mid-American Energy for the Southeast Connector Project, $1. Is there anybody in the audience to speak on this item? It's an easement of city-owned property.
If you have no speakers, I'll move this
All right,
item.
seeing none, we'll close the hearing. It's been moved. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Hensley?
Yes.
7 yes.
All right, item 47 on the conveyance and vacation of a segment of Ingersoll Avenue right-of-way adjoining 525 17th Street to Artisan Row LLC in exchange for a comparable parcel of land adjoining 1623 Grand Avenue. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above, and B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. Is there anybody in the audience to speak regarding this vacation, conveyance, and exchange?
Mayor, if there's no one to speak, I'm happy to move item 47A and B. It's a great project, and I look forward to its conclusion.
All right, the item's been moved. Any discussion?
7 yes.
All right, let's note that the hearings end at 5:36. And I would like someone to move to reconsider item 40. It appears as though we needed 6 votes, and at that time, we did not have it. So if somebody would reconsider, the applicant, I think, would like us to do so. So that'd be item 40.
Move.
Regarding 1414 Fremont. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the item's reopened. Again, it's request to rezone 1440 Fremont Street from R160, one-family, low-density residential, to limited C2, general retail and highway-oriented commercial, to allow the redevelopment as a commercial center. A was the second consideration of that ordinance, and B was a final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver was requested by the applicant and required 6 votes, which essentially is why we reopened it. Mr. Coleman was out of the room, and Mrs. Hensley was not on the line yet. So
This item was with us last council meeting. I asked you to continue it, so I did check, and there's no opposition to that land being accumulated with the corner land there and for development.
Okay, so you move it?
I will move it if there's no other comment.
A and B.
A&B, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We had the first reading last council meeting.
7 yes.
All right, I thank you. Could we have a motion to I guess, adjourn as city council and reconvene as Board of Health? All in favor, say aye.
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 We now sit as Board of Health. Item 1 is approving the legal department to proceed with a court action seeking authority to abate the public nuisance at 1715 Clark Street, fire damaged main structure. The holder is Lisa Cruz, also known as Lisa Ann Hyde. Is there anybody in the audience to speak to this item at 1715 Clark Street? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
I'll move.
All right, it's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The item passes. Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You said adjourn. Want to thank everybody for attending this evening. This meeting is over.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine.